Hi everyone and welcome to the show. In today's episode we have Paul Chammas with us, who is running QuRisk. QuRisk is a company that specializes in emerging technologies and the risks associated with those. Particularly we're going to be focusing on quantum technologies in this video, so I hope you enjoy watching the video as much as I enjoyed the interview myself. Hey Paul, thanks a lot for joining today.
Hello, Niklas. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, sure. I figured to kick this off, we could talk about your background. So you're running QuRisk now.
Yes.
Before actually starting that company, can we talk about your educational background and then also your professional background?
Yes, of course. So, Niklas, I'm a telecommunication engineer, and I have more than 13 years of experience in IT risk and cybersecurity. And after graduation, I work at big companies, big four companies, and others in risk management, operational risk, compliance, data analysis, and all domains related to risk management, mainly for financial services. And after a while, I noticed that there are some issues regarding the risk management offerings for fintechs, and that's how I began my shift from being an employee to trying to create something. And the first thing I created was CLARICE before creating QuRisk 2 years ago.
Let's go into CLARICE and the offering that emerged from that observed need. But before going there, how would you say the process worked at these big companies when it comes to risk management? Firstly, perhaps in terms of the size, the number of people, at least, I guess that varies a lot depending on what companies they're interacting with. But from your experience, the kind of projects you were involved in, how big were generally the teams from the side of the consultancy company, like engaging with the third party?
Yes, the teams were fairly big. Each team risk advisor was 100 people in my big four company. IT risk was 50 people. Because you need to know that starting 2000 and 2005, risk management began to be important because regulation like Basel and other began to push. Mainly for financial services and other industries followed for a better risk management. So the methodologies began to become more efficient, and big companies began to recruit internally risk teams. IT department began to recruit controllers and IT risk officers, which was not the case long time ago. And so it was normal that big consulting company began to do offering in order to propose their services to those companies. So when I joined in starting 2010, things were in their hype, and they were recruiting a lot in IT risk advisor, etc. So it was good years. And following, and of course, I said 2010, so following 2008, the crisis, a lot of money was put on risk management in order to put in place controls, so we don't have another similar crisis than the one we had in 2008.
Mm-hmm. How does the interaction work between internal risk management professionals inside of the companies and then the consulting companies that come with external services? Where would the dichotomy be between the kind of tasks that a consulting company would take on, whereas
Yes.
the ones that are handled internally?
I want to talk. I want to talk about my expertise, which is IT risk, because I think pure operational risk management is a little bit has its own specifications. What's interesting in IT risk is that generally risk management department, the people that work on operational risk come from financial risk or come from generally in financial services. So they don't have IT background. Okay. And when you talk about operations in all sectors today, you cannot not include information technology. So if you work on risk management, on operations, and you don't have the good understanding of technology, it's a problem. So our department, IT Risk, was here to give these department and these controllers and these auditors the help that they need in order to understand and follow up the issues with information technology that can reflect the operation and the business activities themselves. So it began like that, and later on, of course, all company began to adapt to this, and the offering generally adapt because you need to know that some companies don't have big teams, so they are understaffed, so they need to contact a consulting company, and others don't have sometimes specific expertise in, let's say, new regulation, because risk management is always driven by regulation. So there is a new regulation and we need some expertise, and when you are in consultancy firm, you must always update your knowledge, do new certifications, so always there is help requested from consultants.
In terms of the regulation as well, how forward-looking is that in general? So regulators are putting on the constraints and the companies need to adhere to those constraints. Would you say the way this evolved was regulators put regulations in place that needed to take effect on a very short-term basis, and it was something you have to fulfill in your everyday processes? Or was it more forward-looking that, okay, in 2 years you need to be compliant with this thing, and then companies are free to navigate their way to compliance with that in whatever way they choose?
Let me begin by saying that the stance on regulation is a little bit political. So some people are with, some people are against. But let me say that from what I saw, regulation is very, very important. Okay, abusing this will have a downside, of course, like everything. But regulation is so important because in these type of support domains like risk management, if you don't have regulation, no one will do anything. And I saw it with the fintechs later. That's how I created CLARICE, and I try to do things for the fintechs, because without Basel, without other type of regulation, FATCA, OFAC, and others that came along, I don't think that companies will put a lot of effort and money and budget to have a big risk team and get help from consultant to put all these controls in place and all these methodologies in place. So, but there is a limit to that. Because the limit is that the companies, that this regulation and this methodology became the end and not the mean. So if the regulator is here, okay, he needs a risk register, let's do something very beautiful, you give it to him, but sometimes they don't follow up, because the idea here is that the regulator will be pleased and not that we manage correctly the risk. And this is the limit of regulation. And this is the risk culture that we are trying with other people to install. So what you are doing, it's not for the regulator, it's for yourself, it's for your business. As things are evolving slowly, but as I said, why I focus on fintechs, because fintechs are not as much regulated as the big banks. Things are moving forward, but not the same thing. And we see that if the regulator does not request something, like for example, continuity planning, if they don't request a business continuity plan, they don't do it. Even though the majority of SMEs will get impacted and fatally impacted if there is some big problem with IT or a ransomware attack or other type of malicious event. So the risk culture is so important to move forward, and not only the fear of the regulator.
I'm going to try and not sidetrack too much, but I think that's a very interesting point you're raising on how you change the culture around fulfilling these regulatory requirements. Because I think the problem you're raising is I would say the problem that really runs through the entire risk management processes of all types of institutions, especially I think as they get larger.
Yes.
Do you have any idea for what society can do in general to help make that, like, help address that problem in a more efficient way?
To be honest, I don't know, because the problem is we do the same mistake all over again each time, and we learn from it, but in a very specific way and not in a very general way. Let's give you an example. We had the 2008 crisis, okay, and it impacted everyone, and they put in place a lot of regulation to it, okay. And in 2020 we had COVID, and it was a disaster. And now they are putting so and on those type of risks, there are not very it's not a surprise, because in risk management we have top risk from natural disasters and pandemic and huge ransomware or cyber attacks. So next time, if we have a very massive cyber attack that will block the majority of the bank, let's say something very systemic, we will be very surprised, and we try to do things in a more systemic way. But I think that as a society and as a mentality, we don't deal with long-term things and with systemic things. We only deal. So it's but to be positive on another to try to be more positive, risk culture and risk management is evolving, which each of these crises. But we have now the climate challenges and other type of risk, medium term and long term. So we must a little bit be more proactive in our risk management way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's segue maybe to CLARICE now.
Yes.
You were working for these big consultancy companies, and you noticed that perhaps not all needs are being addressed. Could you elaborate a bit on what made you start that company?
Yes, because when I was, for example, at the Big Four company, when we did, let's say, I'll take an example, a business continuity plan for a medium bank, it cost a lot. And I think that fintechs that are very small, but they have a lot of money under management, cannot perhaps afford business continuity plans for thousands and thousands of euros, and sometimes a huge amount. They need something with the same quality, but in a more reasonable budget for them. And I saw that we don't have a lot of offering for them. So I created CLARICE and began, first of all, to innovate in the methodology. So try to simplify, but at the same time leave the essential things. Simplify in the deliverables. So I don't give them a report, a 200-page report at the end. Sometimes 20-page report, very concise and very straight to the point will do. And we created a platform to automate some of the assessment that we do. So all the time that we spend on assessing will be divided by 4, and thus the budget divided by 4. So this is what we began to do, and we had some success, but also lot of challenges, because the regulators were not as tough as for big institutions, and the people that manage the fintechs are still in a startup mode, but in the same time they manage money like big institutions. So what I try to do is to install this risk culture, and at the same time you cannot okay, we come in hoodies, we play some ping pong and everything. It's very good, but you have real money under management, you have real processes, real clients. So you cannot say I have my risk guy who is in the same time the compliance officer, the risk officer, the internal auditor, and the controller, and everything, and he will do everything. Mm-hmm. And his job at the end of the day is just doing some deliverables for the regulator to show him, oh, we did a internal control, we did this audit, we did that. And the idea is not real managing risk, but showing we have paper trails for regulators. And a lot of these companies will have minor and sometimes major problems of internal fraud, of external fraud, etc., because they didn't install from the beginning strict control or different level of line of defenses. So I try to help them do it in a way that it's for their size, but at the same time it's not so heavy for them. But compared to what they have, which is sometimes nearly nothing, it must be done.
Mm-hmm. Is your view that the pressure put on companies or startups in particular by regulators has become stronger or larger over time?
Yes, but not in the sometimes in the right way, because it's my opinion. Regulators sometimes treat fintechs like banks. Mm-hmm. As I said, they are not startups, they are financial institutions, but they are not banks. So I don't think that always they adapt to their size, to their agility things. And they request, for example, for big banks, we request a risk register, business continuity plan. So give me this document. So they go and they write this document or get help to write this document. They send it to them and say, okay, you have it. It's good. Mm-hmm. But I think that in the last decade, there was a boom in fintechs, neobanks, and the crypto exchanges, etc. And the regulators didn't adapt because they took at first an aggressive attitude. Then they said it's an industry with billions of dollars, so we cannot stay aside and push it back. So we must regulate. But I think they are putting the same logic they put on big companies on small companies. So still today it's not so efficient. And we see, when we see scandals, I think it's the extreme. Not all the industries are doing something scandalous, but when we see a lot of more scandals in these companies than in others, we see that there is a lack of oversight and something must be done.
Mm-hmm. Bringing this back to the offering of CLARICE now.
Yes.
You mentioned before that you were taking a more lightweight approach to the risk management compared to what some of the large institutions are offering.
Yes.
You particularly mentioned that some of the assessments you're making are more lightweight and streamlined for these kinds of companies. What kind of assessments do companies mainly have to perform? Are they quantitative in nature or are they qualitative in nature?
Both, but I begin generally by qualitative analysis. So I take, for example, ISO 27001, ISO 27002, it's for cybersecurity and IT security. We have 144 best practices of security. So I simplified them to 33 best practices, and I automated them in my platform. And I go and what I do, for example, I spend 2-3 hours with a company, with the main actors from IT, from the C-suite, from the CISO, the risk manager, everyone that must be involved and present. And I do an awareness session about it, but at the same time, I collect the information. So at the end, I click a button, they have a first report during the session, and then I put my analysis, and 2 days later, they have things. So instead of doing a ISO 27002 audit that takes 2 weeks, and I can do the things in 3 days. Of course, a more thorough analysis may give more information, but at least they will have the minimum gap analysis and action plan to implement to be more compliant to these best practices. So this is for cybersecurity, and other type of things is a wider risk assessment. So we had at CLARICE, and now we are using them at QuRisk, 12 categories, wide risk categories. So we go and we do a flash assessment in 3 days on HR risk, compliance risk, operational risk, and we provide this gap analysis and action plan. Same things for business continuity planning. We do a simplified business impact analysis, and then I generate a business continuity plan, disaster recovery, that is directly linked to the platform, because a lot of them have financial platform or something like that, or are on the cloud. So I will do a straightforward deliverable, and I give to their CEO a playbook on the top 5, top 10 risk scenarios. What to do if you have ransomware, who to call, what to do if you have a flood, what to do if you have a storm, what to do if you have a pandemic. So I personalize it to the top risks that they have, but I tell them that not only your teams must have controls in place, but also you are the head of crisis management. So I tell them, you are, as a CEO, you are head of crisis management. So this is your playbook. And if you have a real crisis, you don't have the luxury of thinking, what should I do? So let's do it now. And I give this playbook, we can update it. And all the things that are done for big companies, but in a more heaviest way, I try to do it in a more simplified way, small document, straightforward, and we had some success with some small banks, with some small companies, some small startups, but we couldn't scale massively on the things that are not backed by regulators.
Mm-hmm. And is my understanding correct in saying that this is proactive from the perspective of the companies then? It's not something reactive as to some pressure in general put onto them by regulators, but a proactive way for the companies to ensure that they maintain compliance with existing regulatory guidelines in case something would pop up in the future.
Yes, and not only that, sometimes clients, because I will tell you an anecdote that I had 2 years ago. Okay, I went to a company, a fintech that I know. I told them, do you want me to do for you a risk assessment, a large risk assessment, 2-3 days? It won't be pricey, and you will have an idea about the main risk that you have. They said, no, we have this risk officer who is a compliance officer, and he's doing his things. We don't need it. Okay. 4 months later, they called me and they said, okay, we have a client in London who wants us to provide him our risk register, and we don't have a risk register, and the compliance officer cannot do it. So I did something in 24 hours, and it's not. I was not happy, but at the same time, I didn't want to lose the relationship with them. But I told them afterwards, I did it to them, but it's not the right way to do it. Even in a simplified way, it's not the right way to do something quickly just to send to someone to validate something. But the risk culture, the risk culture is taught slowly, and sometimes you cannot say just no. You will do the things, but in the same time say something and say, okay, I will do it for you because you need help, but this is not the right way to do it. And I created this company specifically not to do this, but you must adapt. You cannot be so strict because you lose the relationship with people. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If we're bringing this now to QuRisk, which
Yes.
is not only focused on fintech companies, but has a wider scope in terms of risk management, what caused you to take CLARICE and broaden the offering, if that's the right way of thinking about this, to what's now QuRisk?
Yes. When we were working at CLARICE, we saw a boom in an early boom in quantum technologies, and personally, I'm passionate about emerging technologies. So I said that quantum technologies is not like it's not just a new technology. It's not like blockchain or AI that are new models and ways based on the computing technologies that we already have. It's a new way of computing, a new way of thinking based on laws of physics that are new, based on quantum mechanics and not the classical way of doing things. So I had the idea that all the things that we are doing in IT risk will need to be implemented for quantum risk, because the specification of this technology and the foundation is not the same. So it's not just changing the methodology from, for example, blockchain to AI to IoT and to quantum. Quantum needs some very specific thinking. We need experts who understand very well the technology. It's not something that just you read and you learn. So I had I knew people that are quantum expert, and I talked to them and I said, let's experiment by creating within CLARICE a subsidiary focused on quantum technologies, and let's see what happens. And we had a great surprise, because things went forward very quickly, because there is a great need in quantum risk. No one's talking about quantum risk outside the fact that a quantum computer can break encryption later on, and we will talk about it. But when adopting quantum technologies, no one is talking how to manage risk of quantum adoption. Mm-hmm. So we had the success. We did some experimentation in quantum machine learning for risk management, and because things move forward quickly, I had a choice: or give it to someone else, because the growth is very important, or change something, because you cannot have two big startups that are growing and move forward with them. So I talked to the team, I talked to everyone, and we decided to merge CLARICE and QuRisk under QuRisk, but change the vision of QuRisk. That means we will say that we are a risk management company that will handle emerging technologies. In CLARICE, we were working already on blockchain. We had clients in crypto exchanges. We were working on AI. So what we did, we created this new QRisk, where we manage risk of emerging technology with 3 practices: quantum technologies, blockchain and digital assets, and AI. And each one of the risk managers that we had, I told them, you must gain expertise in one of these 3. And the people that liked blockchain, we work on certification for them. The ones who like AI, same thing. And for me, because I'm now focusing on the quantum practice, I enrolled in a master's last year to learn quantum computing in the right way. And now this month I will finish my master's in quantum computing, and we are doing very interesting things.
Mm-hmm. I think, as you alluded to before, quantum technologies are new in fundamental ways. If you compare it to some of the fintech companies, it's a new kind of offering. It's some new capabilities that are unlocked, but the technology is, to some extent, you can rely on well-tested practices from the past to adopt those technologies. With quantum, it's not obvious that you can do that. Maybe you can in some cases, but I'm sure there are cases where this is unprecedented in terms of historical things that you can actually leverage for assessing the risks. How does your company go about assessing those risks in a domain where there's so much uncertainty and so little information, historical information to leverage when you're assessing the risks?
It's a very good question, and I want to add, not only it's a new way, at the same time, quantum technologies are not mature today. So we are going to companies to tell them, experiment on, for example, algorithm, on quantum simulators that will work and will give you real advantage years to come when we have mature machines that are affordable, it's a tough sell. So you don't have the history to build your framework, and at the same time, it's a very tough sell and also you tell them you can choose not to do it, but later on the companies that began early adopting today will have an advantage on you. So you will say, if I don't do anything, there will be problems. If I do anything, it will be. I'm afraid to waste some resources because I don't know if the technology will be so mature in the upcoming years or no, or the algorithms that I'm building will give real advantage, etc., etc. So it's a bet. It's a bet. And when you have this type of uncertainty, you need risk management. So let's begin by this. So risk management is not here when everything is good. It's here to prevent the bad, and if the situation is bad, is here to organize it. So that comforted us to say we need quantum risk from now and not for tomorrow, because a lot of people in the adoption in the risk management for quantum adoptions, they say, okay, but the technology won't be in production before many years, so we don't need risk management. So I give them pure examples. So all the money that you are putting now, do you think that it's put in the right place? You are choosing the right hardware, the right software, the data that you are working on, is it safe? Because you are not working in production, so you are taking data from your company to experiment with them. Are they anonymized? Did you check about data privacy? Do you have some indicators about the expected or the wished technical advantages, business advantages? Do you have? So when I began to give example, people begin to understand that, okay, you are talking about things that must be checked right now, because there are other things to be checked tomorrow, like incident management, continuity planning, etc., when things will be in production. But from today, if you are putting money, and I know there's a global crisis, you cannot put money and not manage it well. And risk management is a way to manage your money and put it in the right way and not waste it. So yes. But to respond to the fact that we don't have historical data, it's true when we are talking about, for example, quantifying risks. And the risk quantification today in quantum risk management it's something that we are working on, but we are beginning with a qualitative way of assessing risk, with a wide risk management view. We are looking at HR, at compliance. We are following up the regulators. We are looking at the operation, at the inherent risk of this technology, because we have information about them. The scalability potential of these technologies, the coherence and the errors of this technology. Lot of papers, lot of ways to collect them and build our knowledge database. So we have data in order to build a qualitative framework. We are now working on this semi-quantitative framework with key risk indicator and key performance indicator, and later on we will attack the quantitative methods of assessing those risks once we have a little bit more maturity and retakes on the experimentation that are currently being conducted. But it's an ongoing process, but at least now we have all the tools to go and do some quantum risk assessment or evaluation on use cases that are being implemented. We have everything we need to do.
Okay. And the companies that you're interacting with mainly now, and again, speaking from the quantum perspective, are they companies that are developing quantum solutions themselves? Are there companies that would likely be affected in case quantum technologies sort of get widely adopted in the market? Are there academic institutions that need to assess how they would sort of change their offerings or prepare themselves better for the advent of these technologies? What are the companies that you're primarily working with?
I want to begin by saying that in quantum, in our quantum practice, we have two families of offering. Okay, as I said, the one of assisting people to adopt quantum safely. So, and the other one is about post-quantum cybersecurity. So the risk of future quantum computer to break the encryptions. And we have a specific go-to-market strategy for each one. Okay, for the adopt quantum safely offering family, we target two type of companies. The end user companies that are experimenting on quantum computing, we go to them, we tell them, okay, you are working with this hardware vendor and this software vendor. Let us do a quantum risk assessment to make sure that everything is smooth. And from now, you have all, everything is under control from day one. So this is the first type of go-to-market strategy. The second one is we go to big hardware or software quantum companies and tell them when you will go and because sometimes a hardware company work with a software company, so together we'll go to a client and work on a use case. We tell them, okay, in your offering, add us. And last month, Evident, which is a NATO's business, added us with other companies in their offering as a risk layer. And they have the offering called Captiva. And we are doing effort to go-to-market effort with them today. So it's a double strategy, working with other quantum vendor, because we see ourselves not competitors for them, but partner, because we give only the risk layer, and with end users. As for the post-quantum cybersecurity offering, we work with everyone, because we go to the IT security team of mainly financial institution, because that's why generally we work, and our consultants are mainly working in this industry. But we are not only dedicated for this industry. We are beginning here because you begin from where you are used to. And we are doing a lot of work today on awareness session, because the migration process to post-quantum cryptography is scheduled from now to 2030. Okay, the European are pushing for more hybrid solutions, and the American are more straightforward. From now to 2030, 2035, you must migrate to new protocols, the NIST protocols that are quantum resistant. So we are dealing with these discrepancies, but mainly we are beginning with massive awareness sessions to companies, so they understand the threat. We are doing it directly to clients, but also to association and collective of banks, etc., in order to explain to them the threat, the solution, the timeline, the regulator views, etc. And then we have gradual offerings going from starting with awareness, then going to strategy planning, master plan about the migration, business case, how to request budget, how to explain it to your top management, then quantum cyber assessment, then help them in the implementation. It will be a long way. We are at the beginning today. We have a lot of requests for awareness sessions, and things will move forward in this offering slowly in the upcoming months.
Mm-hmm. When you say that the European Union is taking a hybrid approach to this migration,
yes.
Can you elaborate on what you mean there?
Of course. That means today, just for 4 years ago, NIST in the United States, the information technology regulator there, and the Institute for Standards on Technology, they began some kind of competition for post-quantum cryptography protocol that must replace the current one that are vulnerable for quantum computers. Okay, so the selection process took years, and now we have 4 finalists. Okay, And these finalists, they are saying we are ready, we will begin to be ready to implement them. But the problem is that these finalists, we don't have today this efficient quantum computer to test them. So there are a lot of mathematical ways and ways to test them. But we have these protocols. NIST is saying we begin to experiment on them and later on implement them. But the European generally are more cautious. So they cannot recommend from now that everyone will switch to these protocols, because the current protocols like RSA and others are very strong, are very proven, but are not vulnerable for the current technology, for the current computers and supercomputers, etc. So they cannot say just in 2030, 2035, everyone must switch to these four that are new. So they say we want companies to begin to plan the migration and do a crypto agile strategy or hybrid strategies. That mean putting two types of encryption, the classical ones that we have today and the post-quantum ones, and work on the architecture. So it's not straightforward. You have a protocol it's classic and put, for example, RSA or something like that, and put another one which is based on the new mathematical approach, the lattice-based, etc., from NIST. But I think we talked to the French regulator, and we understood their point of view, and they said things will move forward. Generally, because the new cryptographic protocol come from the USA, so they are pushing them, but also they are pushing them to 2030, 2035. It's not for next year. The Europeans, I think, there will have a gradual approach toward full migration. So they are observant. They push company to begin to understand the threat and plan it. But I think their views will change with once this protocol will prove their efficiency, and at the same time we will have breakthroughs in quantum computing. I think that their views will be more straightforward, and it's a cultural things, I think, between Europe and between the US. The US generally are more straightforward, but from outside you can see discrepancies, but from the inside I don't see a lot of discrepancies. Things will move on when things will be more clear for everyone.
Mm-hmm. If we keep focusing on the European perspective,
yes,
how is your view that they're able to incur a sense of urgency in companies when they take this less clearly defined hybrid approach? With the US, it's perhaps very blunt, perhaps too blunt in some cases, that you're saying very clearly, okay, by this time you need to be migrated, but the solutions are not clear at this point, so how can you really make that statement? But the benefit I see with that is at least you're giving companies a clear sense of urgency and a clear timeline that you need to be done with this at this point. If requirements are very vague, that could also be used as an excuse by companies not to really take concrete action. I'm not saying that's the case though right now, but how is the EU, in your opinion, approaching creating a sense of urgency for companies when they're not taking as blunt of an approach as the US?
When we met the regulators, the French regulator last month, we asked them this question, and their answer was clear to us. They told us that first of all they understand this issue, which is good. They understand that the current position of the European is not so blunt, and if it continues like that, it will create confusion. But they said from now they are pushing to companies to understand the threat and begin preparing for it. But this current view will adapt, and very soon it won't be the same as the American way, straightforward. But what's happening here in Europe is the main IT security regulators in the main countries are working together on this with the national strategic plan for quantum of each company, and they want to publish soon a more clear view, but it will stay focused on crypto agility and hybridation, and it will be less vague but not as blunt as the Americans. Mm-hmm. And what they are saying that they are in contact with main companies, and they will push them to begin their work experimentation of post-quantum cryptography and putting plans in place. So they know that things are not so clear from their side, but at the same time, they are doing a one-to-one work with big companies and important strategic companies to push them to begin to think about those things. And let's hope that I don't want to say too late or not too late, but let's think that the position will be clearer sooner than when we have real issue to face.
Mm-hmm. Do they have some interim timelines defined? Again, speaking about the European perspective.
Yes, but for now it's not so clear. The timeline of American, as I said, 2030, 2035, full migration. It's clear. Okay.
Well, my idea is more not a timeline for actual completion as for the US, but I'm thinking interim timelines for, let's say, by this time the European Union needs to have let's say, a formal decision for when the final timeline needs to be put in place.
No. They are working on it because the timeline, the timeline that we have is that from now to 2030, companies must have hybrid solutions, and starting 2030. Full migration is optional, which is okay. I don't understand what does that mean, but they understand that it's not a position that is very clear. So what they are telling from now to 2030, we must be ready to have some component of quantum resistance. Okay, but things will be clear. But no, we don't have a timeline from when this negotiation and these views will be clearer, and we will have strict delays. I think that not only they are waiting their negotiation, but also they are tempering and waiting for the experimentation of these protocols and the evolution of quantum technologies to be more straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if we fast forward a few years,
yes,
for quantum technology to become more established and
yes,
for there to be quantum computers that can actually be used to help test these post-quantum cryptography algorithms.
Yes.
How do you see that actually happening? How do you think we'll practically go about testing these algorithms that are now competing for taking the place of current cryptography algorithms in the post-quantum landscape?
First of thing, the experimentation is beginning today. Of course, we don't have the machines to break them, but the experimentation of implementation of these protocols is beginning today and must begin today. Because when you put in place a protocol, the vulnerabilities and the problems are not only regarding the machine that can break them, but also their efficiency. Because some protocols are not adapted in terms of speed of transaction, of the cryptographic speed for the transaction and exercises you need them to. So, for example, if you have some financial trading, some communication between fast communication needed, and you have a protocol that with a lot of latency, with a lot of delay, you cannot implement it. So the testing is not only about if it's broken or no, but if it's applicable or no for this type of transaction or communication or data you are protecting. So people must begin experimentation from now, even though we are talking about hybridation, because if you have layers of protection, etc., you must not lose in quality and efficiency on your communication and data. So what will happen, I think, today, people will experiment in ways to protect efficiently without losing in terms of business quality. and business outcomes. And later on, when machines will be more effective, I think protocols will be challenged and updated, because you must not think that we have some magical protocol that will protect us. IT security is something that's evolving and will evolve. And I think in 2030, maybe we will have another type of protocol or another version of the same protocol that will be here. So if a efficient quantum computer will come and is very brutal and show some vulnerabilities, we have all the possibilities to evolve these protocols and to update to the new threat. So that's why we are saying begin from now your experimentation for business purposes, because later on, if you have an urgency to switch to post-quantum protocols and you didn't test them on your data and communication, okay, you will protect them, but you won't be efficient in terms of business, and you will have operational risk and not cybersecurity risks. So that's why it's important to anticipate.
Do you think there's a chance that we'll have a broad range of different cryptography algorithms when it comes to ensuring similar kinds of information, but for different use cases? Like
we already have the 4 of NIST, but also each country we have a solution from Switzerland. France has some solutions for a cryptographic solution. Every major country and big post-quantum cryptography startup is either taking and packaging the NIST protocols or working on some protocols for them. But I think that we will have both. We'll have a lot of protocols, and the most efficient ones will be implemented for the right applications. That's the most important thing. So we will say, okay, for VPNs, those 2-3 are the best, and for the other type of communication, those 2-3 are the best. And I think things will be clearer after the waves of experimentation on use cases.
Okay, we're running up on time now, so I'm going to bring this to a close with some final questions. For any companies that are out there that are thinking about getting in contact with a company like yours for their risk management processes, is there any advice you would give them in terms of preparing themselves, things they should consider before reaching out, anything like that?
All I'm saying that I created QuRisk because today, if you are interested in experimenting in quantum technologies, or you want to be prepared for any threat of quantum computers, you must have the right guidance, and you must have a right approach that is tested and that is was efficient in other type of technologies like classical IT technologies. So we are here as an intermediate between all these companies and all our partners, which are the other vendors that are trying to push their technology. So we are here for them to be well prepared, to select the best technologies to implement, to assist them in their implementation, and of course to ensure that the project that are doing will not fail due to risks that are not related in the technology itself. But for example, some operational risk, IT risk, cybersecurity risk. So with our broad risk-based approach, we ensure that if all the success, all the failure of the experimentation for the right reason and not the wrong reasons. And they can reach us on our website, QuRisk.fr, or contact at QuRisk.fr.
Perfect. Paul, thanks a lot for taking the time to speak to me today.
Thank you, Nicholas.